save America. Somebody's got to do it. What another great day to fight the system. My name is Damon Dominique. Welcome to the channel. Welcome in. We're here to discuss... I'm back in the United States. I do live in Paris. I've been there. Geez, it's been like 10 years. I studied there. Was going back and forth, got a visa. Had an apartment for 6 years, but I am originally from the Midwest, and I've lived in, so Midwest is pretty conservative. I've lived in New York City, I've lived in LA, I've lived in Miami, and so I feel like I understand what it's like to live in the United States, but I also know what it's like to live outside of the United States. And so today, we're gonna do a balanced, here's everything that the United States really just needs to change. Like at this point, we gotta change this, because it's getting a little silly out here. And I think most people, no matter which party you belong to, or as you'll learn in this video, like maybe you shouldn't belong to a party. I forgot what the end of the sentence was, like just general solutions we could be implementing that I've learned from around the world. And also, by the way, I know that I have an international audience. I've met you guys all over the world. So if you, like throughout this video, as you hear me talking, it'd be nice if you could chime in, you know, be like, actually, our elections are set up this way, so that we can make the comment section a place where everybody could learn. I'm now old enough to have voted in what, like 3 or 4 elections. It's not even that many, but I've already realized there are patterns on not only the politicians' side, but the voters' side. Here's what for the politicians. Let me guess. You're gonna you're gonna really try hard to do the work to lower the cost for middle-income, hardworking American families. You're gonna try to secure the border and lower healthcare costs. They've been saying that for the 15 years that I've been able to vote. They'll make all these promises, and then, well, I mean, maybe they'll accomplish a few. The ones they don't accomplish, they'll just blame it on Congress. And the ones they do accomplish will be in the final year of the administration, so that it's fresh in your memory, so that you do vote for them to be in office for you. Okay, so that's the pattern that I realized from both parties. This leads me to the pattern I notice in voters. Most of the time, they're like, well, I feel like each election I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. I wish there was somebody else I could vote for. There are other people you could vote for. There are third parties that we could all be voting for, but we don't because we don't know about them. And why don't we know about them? Everyone take a moment. Why don't we know about them? Because they're not on the same playing field. Because the Republicans and the Democrats are funded by massive donations from who? Not just individual donors, because there's a cap. Me as a voter, you as a voter, we can only, I don't know, donate like $5,000 or $6,000 each election cycle to a candidate. I think it's like $3,000 for primaries, $3,000 for the president. We can only do so much. But there are these things called PACs, super PACs, political action committees. They're groups, okay? Let's just make it simple. They're groups, they're companies whose sole purpose it is to raise money for a certain cause. Those causes are often aligned with either the Democratic or Republican Party. Now since they're just companies, they can raise unlimited amounts of donations, and then they can, you know, invite the candidates to dinner. They can fly the candidates out, and that's how they then influence the candidates to run TV ads for the campaign. They can't directly, I guess, work with the campaign, but they can, I don't know, put up yard signs everywhere. I read so many comments that was like, in the States, it's called lobbying. In every other country, it's called corruption or like undue influence. Before we move on to even point number 1, the way France does it, again, from my understanding, you can't do any of this. You can't do the money thing. As soon as you as a candidate get a certain amount of signatures, then you get public funding. Public funding is from the government. So yes, like the government's funded by all of us as taxpayers, voters, but that provides a playing field, an even playing field where I believe you can only, like each candidate is given the same amount of money to use on their campaign. That way they're not taking money from, I don't know, like companies, these groups, PACs, super PACs, like gun manufacturers who hope that once their candidate is elected that they will, I don't know, make gun laws, you know, less strict. Like that's how this works. Okay, that's a really conservative example. Let's think of a liberal example, like the environment, an environmentally, a company whose sole purpose it is to protect the environment. They can also raise a lot of money and donate to their campaign, to a political campaign, and then hope that the political candidate that they donated to will then do everything for the environment. You see how both sides, like it does make sense in a way, but the whole thing just seems a little funky as soon as money gets involved. Now here's the analogy I came up with. Imagine you're going to school, but your parents are paying for it. Now you're free to do, your day-to-day, to eat at the cafeteria you want to, and maybe choose your course curriculum. But if you say, just an example, that you want to be an art major when your parents want you to be a business major, they ain't gonna let you be an art major because they're funding you. You see what I mean? Like, ultimately, it's not your decision because you're being bought in a way. Now take that example and amplify it, multiply it on a government scale. You have all these companies who are funding your campaign, helping you get around the country to promote your message. But as soon as you get in office, remember who paid for everything? Remember who ran those TV ads and did all this fundraising? Yeah. You are not answering to the voters, really. You're answering to the groups who paid for your campaign. So all of this to say, this is the first year that I have looked at both parties, and obviously I align more with Kamala Harris. Obviously. But I do understand, especially after being in Indiana, I get what people mean on the right when they say that these establishment politicians aren't doing anything for the American people either. And that's why they like Donald Trump, because he says that he wants to drain the swamp. You can't believe a word out of his mouth. And you also can't believe a word out of the Democrats' mouth. And I hate that what I'm about to say is controversial, because in really any other country this wouldn't be controversial because there are multiple parties running each election. But in the United States, there are only two parties. And so people tend to say that a vote for a third party is a wasted vote. We're going to get to that too. But my response to that is the only time you're throwing your vote away is to continue perpetuating a system that's really doing nothing for you, which is this two-party system. So a vote for a third party is just as much a vote for the candidate as it is a vote against the system that's in place. Let's go. Next. Next. Political things that only happen, from my knowledge, in America that we could fix and probably all agree on. Ready? Number one, election day should be a holiday. For everyone watching who's not American, it's not a holiday. It's on a Tuesday, and yes, people have to work, and then yes, they have to stand in line, and yes, they have kids, and they have lives, and none of it stops for the election. There are so many holidays that people don't even know what they're for. Remove one of those. Every law that concerns me, you, should be written in a way that a fifth grader could understand it. Simple sentences, I'm talking 4 sentences each law. And it should be like the Netherlands website, where you just log on, you click the law that you want to learn about, and you have it right there. It's literally in plain English. The official language of the Netherlands is Dutch. For all the Americans out there, if I asked you, what are the laws around psychedelic mushrooms? Do you know? I have no clue either. And how do you find that information? Right now, if you were to look it up, how do you find that? Let's type it in. Let's see. Okay, foundations, Wikipedia, CNN, Canada, United States Department of Justice, Fast Facts. Was this it? Oh my God, that's the website? This is the website. This is what I'm saying. You can see why people don't want to pay more taxes, because that's the website. What? There's a 6th grader who has a website better than that. So do you see what I'm saying? I don't even know where to, I guess I go to government.usa.gov. But that needs to be more obvious. And then search government. Let's type in mushrooms. Let's see. And then there are links to other websites that aren't the law here. So no, if I ever get pulled over, it's no, sir, I don't know the law because you guys made it so difficult to find it. Just let's go on Netherlands. Government.nl. Family healthcare, here we go. Health insurance, family law, drugs. Easy. Here we go. Difference between hard and soft. Great. See, this is how simple it is in the Netherlands. 4 paragraphs. Great. Thank you. Too bad I don't live there. Yeah, it's just, again, it doesn't make sense that the money we pay that we contribute to the government, we don't even know what the laws actually are. That's what the money was for in the first, like that was what that's what the contribution was for, so that you could make a law and then I would know about it. Public information laws. Will someone from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, maybe even Switzerland, comment below? I believe they have what's called public information laws, where any citizen can walk in to a government building and like request to see the documents that everybody's working on that concerns them. I feel like you would not be able to do that in the States because they would have all these rules about security and security clearances and information that's secret, like the CIA, that you can't actually see. It just doesn't seem logical that your money could be funding a government organization that you have no right to see. So yeah, if you're from Norway or Sweden or Scandinavia, can you comment below, like, have you ever actually tried that law out? And is that actually how it works? Like, if you walked into your city hall and requested to see how the budget was being spent, what would happen? Donations, both personal and like corporate. We talked about this a little bit, I think. Where I stand on this right now is that I find it just weird. Every topic in this video, I'm like, and it's weird. With these like AI hands, I find it weird that people would want to donate more. Like, you already fulfilled your financial duty to the government, who should have already been doing what you want them to do. For years, you've contributed to the system, and they didn't do what you wanted to do. So now you give more money via donation to hope they do what you want them to do. All the while, they're still taking money from your taxes. They're still taking money from your job, which is meant for them to do the job they were hired to do. Now, one of the reasons that I cannot keep perpetuating the United States system is because I don't think that either party will change the system. And it's really what needs to be changed at this point. Like, nothing's gonna change if we keep doing this, because every 4 years, guess what? It's always 50-50. Y'all noticing the pattern? Come on. Every year, every 4 years, it's a tight race. Yeah, it's a tight race because there's two parties. Like, maybe if there was a third party, everyone would actually vote for the third party. But we don't know about the third party because of the groups. You guys drive me crazy. You guys drive me. Now, ranked choice voting, to me, makes all the sense. Like, again, it's nonsense that it's not, like, how is this not a thing already? What? So you basically rank your choices. So say that you do like Kamala Harris, but you're like, a vote for her is a vote for the system. Here we go again. Another 4 more years of nothing changing. You could also vote for somebody else. And this is what's cool about France. They do 2 rounds of an election, like of the presidential. You have all the parties running. You, your mom, your best friend, your grandma, everyone has a party. And everyone runs. The ones who win then pass on to the next round, or like the top 2, or top 3, whichever. You have 2 rounds. That way, the first round is everybody can participate. And then the second round is, okay, we narrowed our choices down. It's either going to be this person or this person. That sounds fair. Option 2 is the ranked choice voting, where everybody can run. Like that first round, everyone's running, and then you get to cast your vote for more than one party, because maybe you like both parties. And just because you vote for one doesn't mean that you don't like the other. It would help so much, because you're not just voting for the lesser of 2 evils each time. You're voting for the candidate you actually like, and you don't feel like you're throwing your vote away, because that third party candidate probably won't win. So your vote is being thrown away, as Republicans and Democrats will tell you. Yeah, well, your vote's actually being thrown away if you keep voting Republican and Democrat, because they're never going to be the ones to implement a ranked choice system, because the ranked choice would then allow other parties into the battleground, which could then beat them. I mean, if you think about it, if you're like a diehard Republican or diehard Democrat, you have a 50-50 chance basically each election. So again, either we should, I'm not saying this will happen, but what we should do, since this is a video about just things that I disagree with in the States, what we should do is implement France's system, where you just do like 2 different rounds, and that way you can throw your vote away on the first one, but then your second one, you can vote between two candidates. That sounds like the smart thing to do. That's one option. Option two, and you could argue, wait a second. You could argue that's what we do at the primaries. No, you can't. No, you can't. Because the primaries are either Democratic primaries or Republican primaries, and they don't allow third-party candidates to come in. Another note about the primaries, and just to make this as simple as possible, the primaries is when you're electing the candidate that you will elect in November amongst all the candidates, right? Now, the problem with this is that not all states' primaries, so 50 states are doing primaries, right? They're on different days of different months. Instead of doing it on one day where everybody decides who the candidate's going to be, they're spaced out. Different states go different days, which then obviously like influences everyone else's vote. Like, why doesn't everyone just vote on the same day? So it's not... See, if I'm Damon and I'm voting in a few months, but I see that Georgetta and Bernadette already voted for these two people, I'm now influenced because I see how everybody else is voting. It's just the states that went first had already decided who the candidate was going to be. And the states whose results are announced first influence all the other states, and also to the point where candidates start dropping out. So some of the states don't even get to vote for the candidate because the other candidates are dropping out because they see they're not going to win. You don't know that. Maybe these states are going to vote for you. These are simple things we could do. Not only that, when I was getting my last driver's license, they asked, do you want to be registered Republican or Democrat? And you need to look up what's called an open primary or closed primary. See, the system is too complicated. People aren't going to pay attention this long. They just aren't. I know it. They're just not. Certain states are open primaries and closed primaries, which means if you want to vote in the Democratic primary to decide who the Democratic candidate's going to be, you have to be registered as a Democrat. Then you have open primary states, which means that you could be registered independent. But say if you're like maybe feeling the Democratic Party this time around, you could vote for the Democratic candidate you want to be the candidate. You see how this is a problem? Because, like, for example, I would prefer to be independent, but for me to vote I think I'm registered in Florida right now. We're going to get to this. It's so stupid. For me to vote for a Democratic candidate, I have to be registered as a Democrat. So I believe in Florida I am registered as a Democrat. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be independent. but I think I had to register so that I could vote for who I want the Democratic candidate to be. Like, another thing that turned me off, to be honest, about the Democratic Party this time around is that they refused to do a Democratic debate. They refused. Like, there were so many Republican debates. You had Nikki Haley and Ramaswamy, the governor of Florida. You had all these people doing Republican debates. Trump refused, which again, that's another thing I think all presidential candidates should be required to be at the debates because that's the only time people are going to see them. I mean, besides their like social media accounts, but I think every presidential candidate should be required to be at the debate. Point one. Point two is that yes, the Republicans did their debate, but the Democrats didn't. Democrats' response was, oh, well, it's typically not common when you're already in office to have another debate. Why not? That's what a democracy is. Everybody should be doing debates every election. Every single election. It's not just because you were the sitting president that you don't have to do it. So the Democratic Party didn't do debates when there were other candidates. There were a million other candidates, specifically Marianne Williamson, who I would have voted for. Point number 3 or 4 is that, again, the only people getting media time, media coverage, Republicans and Democrats. You never hear about a third party in the States because the system doesn't work that way. System doesn't work that way because ranked choice voting or this France system isn't implemented because it doesn't help the Republicans and Democrats. Does this make sense? Are y'all following? It's just wild. Like, I can't keep participating in this anymore, you guys. I can't keep doing this. You might ask, don't you live in France? Like, how are you even allowed to vote for a candidate when it's not going to affect you? Well, you guys, fair point. Fair point. But I don't know if you guys know this, but when you live outside of the States, if you're an American, you are taxed on your citizenship. Meaning if you hold an American passport, you are an American and taxed as an American for the rest of your life. Now, what does this mean? Like, if you're French and you move to Thailand, France doesn't do that to you. Like, if you move to Thailand, you're just going to pay taxes in Thailand. But if you're an American and you move to France, you will always, for the rest of your life, have to file a tax declaration to the States. To be honest, not to like fearmonger, like you don't always have to pay taxes to the States because you'll pay them first to France and then you'll get a credit. It doesn't always mean that you're going to have to owe taxes to the States, but you do always have to file a declaration because the United States needs to know how much money you're making in or outside the United States. I talk a little bit more about this in my Global Citizen course. Two-party system also creates this unnecessary freaking divide, binary, where the second you say you don't support gay marriage, everyone's going to think you're a Republican. When you could be so liberal in every other aspect. It's just that people are so used to certain political positions being like labeled one side that they're not even going to talk to you about anything else. When you probably agree with on 99%, just not that one thing. That's another problem. Add that to the list. The divisiveness in the United States is caused by the two-party system, which rewards the extremes. I mean, as we see today, both parties are like getting a little crazy. And it also keeps getting more extreme each election. It doesn't reward the middle, which is where most people are. If we had ranked choice voting, do you guys know about ranked choice voting? If we had ranked choice voting or multiple parties, then we would see that we would all have to come together, like the middle would win more because it's the party that most people want or that most people are okay with. As opposed to now, it's either this or this and it keeps getting further away and you have to vote for one because you definitely don't want the other one you definitely don't want her to win. I don't mean Kamala, I'm just mean like her, she. You don't want this party to win because now it's so far right or left, sorry. Whereas ranked choice, everyone's voting for everybody, and it's like these are the people who are winning. So if anyone ever tells you, like, why would you vote for this person? You're just throwing your vote away. What I need you to tell them is that you're only throwing your vote away by continuing to vote for candidates who are never going to change the system to systems that would be more fair. Ranked choice voting and getting rid of the electoral college. Let's go to the electoral college. All right, electoral college. What? Like, what? In the United States, the candidate who wins the most amount of votes isn't always the candidate who is president. I mean, sometimes you gotta say these things out loud just to hear how dumb they are. The candidate who wins the popular vote, all the votes are cast, and it's Damon Dominique. If I didn't win the strategic amount of states, because each state has points based on its population, then I didn't win. Then I'm not president. What matters is the states. So yes, it's like a peculiar way to do the election. For example, Indiana. How many points does Indiana have? Indiana has 11 electoral votes. Okay, we'll just call them points for simplicity. Basically, both candidates will... I hate how I just said both when it should be multiple. See, it's so ingrained in us that there are two candidates. There should be more. But it is both right now. So both... No, it's not. It's Jill Stein too. It's Jill Stein too. For simplicity's sake, we're going to stick with the two-party system, even though I don't agree with it. Candidate A and candidate B, people vote for them. Candidate A wins by literally one vote. Like, I'm making this really dramatic. They win by one vote. Everybody who voted for candidate B, their votes don't matter. It's like a game of tennis. It doesn't matter how many points you actually scored in the whole match. What matters is how you got those points. Or the volleyball match that I was at last night. It could be 25-24, but because this person A got to 25 first, everyone who voted those 24 points, they don't matter. So you could also argue that your vote doesn't count, or you're throwing your vote away. Indiana always votes Republican. In fact, I think the only time they voted Democrat was for Obama the first time he ran. That was like, it made all the news. But ever since it's always just been conservative. You could walk down the street and figure that out. You guys, sorry, there's so much to say. I don't mean to have all these things to talk about, but when I'm coming home, there's a church with a sign that says pro-life or pro-death. like you're a fucking church. How are you putting such provocative messages? Like, oh my God, you're a church. You could also argue that you are throwing your vote away in a state like Indiana because Democrats are never going to win anyway, so your vote doesn't matter. Like, people aren't far off when they say your vote doesn't matter in certain states. You could also argue that because different states have different points based on population, that the two candidates, candidate A and B, will only focus their time in those states, thus neglecting the rest of the United States. People like, though, the electoral college system because it apparently, in their view, gives more weight to people who live in like rural America. People who live in rural America, like Indiana, they're afraid that because New York City and Miami and LA, Texas have all these people, that if we move to the popular vote, that those cities would just rule the entire United States because there's a lot of people. And so that their policies would then affect policy here. They might be right, but that's why we have state and local governments. I don't think that would ever really happen. But as it is now, we're just valuing state lines and borders, land, like just literal landmass, attributing a point system to it, as opposed to just having those points be attributed to people voting. Is it just me? Is it just me? Is this whole system a little like what? Now, there is some good news here because some states have signed a pact to abolish the electoral college and just do the popular vote. Yay! I also find it to be complete nonsense. Now, you guys, when you live in the States, you have to belong to a state. You can't just be an American. Like when you're in France and you get a driver's license, it says French driver's license. In the States, it was such a headache when I was trying to renew. So I have my apartment in Paris. When I was trying to renew my driver's license, I was coming from, I think it was California, and they wouldn't renew my driver's license. Mind you, I don't even need my driver's license when I'm in Paris because I'm not driving a car, but I knew that if I go to Thailand, I'll need it. If I'm back here in Indiana, I'll need a driver's license. And if I just got a driver's license in France, I'd have to go back to driving school. And in France, it's actually expensive. It's like, I think, a few thousand. And also I just don't need it. So I was trying to renew my driver's license from California, except that they need a utility bill. And I don't have a utility bill because I don't live there. So it became one of these issues that didn't need to be an issue when there should just be a national driver's license for those who, move around a lot in the United States, who don't live in the States, but who might visit here and there. But as it is now, you have to belong to a state. Belonging to a state also creates a problem where, say if I move from Indiana to New York, but I'm a Democrat, I know that New York's always going to vote Democrat, and I know that Indiana's always going to vote Republican. So you could also kind of argue my vote is more wasted in New York because they don't need my vote. Sorry, what I said earlier wasn't true. It was the other way around. No, it's still wasted because the Republicans are going to win in Indiana and Democrats are going to win in New York. So really the only place your vote counts is in a swing state. Does that make sense? If I move to New York and I vote Democrat, it doesn't matter because New York's always going to vote Democrat. My vote doesn't really matter. If I vote Democrat in a Republican state like Indiana, my vote also doesn't matter because Republicans are always going to win. My vote just doesn't count. But if we had the popular vote, abolish the electoral college, then my vote would always count. My point was that say you move to a different state, a lot of times people will keep their voter registration in their past state because their vote will matter more. Their vote will matter more in the other state so they don't change it. Is that legal? No. Do people do that? Uh-huh. I'm just saying it's silly that the power of your vote changes depending on which state you're in. I mean, let's look at my life. I grew up in Indiana. I've lived in New York, Miami, LA. My vote has different weight in each of these places. Doesn't need to be this way. And also, I just want a driver's license. I just want a driver's license. One thing I really dislike in presidential debates and elections is that there is a talking point that goes around where people are saying like, oh, that's unrealistic in the United States. And I hate that because this is the one time, like, the president is supposed to be the dreamiest position of all. And I think, Elizabeth Warren had this quote, I don't know why anyone runs for president to tell us what we can't do. Like, that's not even on the job description. The job description is everything we should be able to do and can do, and let's fix it. I guess I have to run for office. I think the thing that rubs me the wrong way about just politics in general in the States is that people don't, your average American, I would say, doesn't know enough about how the rest of the world works because they think that America is the example. So I think they think that the United States has the best system and that everyone else is looking to us. Now, all right. The United States does have, I mean, if you look at all the apps on your phone, like the technological innovation is pretty crazy over here. I mean, a lot of the entertainers come from those days. I just think people who live here get in their heads thinking like we are the example. I think we could learn a lot from the rest of the world. Well, and there's an attitude of, oh, but we're the United States. For example, I think of New York. When I was there last time, I'm like, why don't they just close down a few avenues and build a tram? And then, since New York is 99% pedestrians, like close the roads to streets, make it for the people who are actually living there, and then make it like big ass bike lanes. And they don't. I don't know why they don't. And I feel like their response to that would probably be, oh, well, yeah, we're New Yorkers. It's a little different here. Different and worse. Like, whereas in Paris, I feel like Paris was very vocal about how they were modeling their city after Copenhagen or Amsterdam. I'm okay to learn from you because I know that there are things to improve here and you guys are doing it correctly. I don't know, I just feel like in the States there's just an attitude of like we're the best. Period. Okay, I already mentioned how presidential debates, candidates should have to be there. Like, Trump didn't do the debates because he didn't want to. That's just, I don't know. It's just like, we can't even say anything about Biden. He didn't even have one. He didn't even have a debate either. So both candidates, not present. Kamala got grandfathered in. This is how it always works. Name recognition. She was the vice president already. Biden was vice president again. It's like when you watch a debate in France, each candidate has the same amount of time. So I believe it was like 25 minutes. I think this was for to be mayor of Paris the last time they did it. And each candidate gets 25 minutes to speak, and you get to use those 25 minutes on the topic you want. Anytime you're speaking over somebody, sorry, your clock's running too. So I just thought that was a really like healthy, mature. I thought it was just a more mature way to run a debate than just a free-for-all. And everybody kind of knows that the person who gets the most, like, there are statistics after the debate of who had the most speaking time. Well, then, of course, if that's going to be like a news story, then you're going to just talk over everybody. So your speaking time's the longest. It's just, how many times have I said it's just? It's not just, actually. It's just not just. Okay, other notes real quick that I'm just going to run through. How they want to ban TikTok, but then all their political campaigns are on TikTok. Like, you got me fucked up. I like the Democrats' platform and candidates and policy. I just wish like they would implement it. Kamala running as if she's not already the vice president. Here's something I want to say. Something else I think is worth mentioning is it's okay. I feel like there is a failure to see why the other side would think the things that they do, or to not acknowledge there's some truth in it. Yeah, Kamala is a sitting vice president. Like, why does she have all these new plans when she could have already been working on all of these things? Fair point. Biden forgave a lot of student loan debt, and that pissed a lot of people off too because they had like worked hard to pay their loans off. And instead of people like understanding, I think like, wow, it would be nice to have all my student loans forgiven, or wow, is kind of sucky that I spent my 10 years trying to pay my loans off when I could have been using that money on vacation. Instead of like seeing where everybody's coming from, they're pitted against each other. Guess why? Two-party system. Okay, not wanting to fit, this is another controversial one, not wanting to fit the Constitution to fit the times. The whole reason the United States is a thing is because they were also dissatisfied with how the system was working, so they literally drafted the Constitution. So I'm just saying, like, why do we almost value their voices more than our own? Why can't we do the same thing? By amending the Constitution, we're doing what they did. Nothing wrong with it when they did it, though. Before we keep going on in this video, I must say thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring the video. BetterHelp is a platform that connects you to a therapist, licensed therapist, and you can connect with them online through the app or the website. I've used them personally for, I think it was like 6 months to a year, something like that. Genuinely had a great time. I talk about them often, loved my therapist, and I felt like she got me. What you should know is that you can change your therapist multiple times if you need to. You gotta find somebody who vibes most with you. And also, keeping in line with this video, I don't even think it's a big ask to require government officials to be in therapy. I mean, if they're gonna represent us, you know what I'm saying? I think that makes a lot of sense. And also, they would get a lot out of it and realize what they're doing for their own ego and what's for the greater good of the American people, or whichever country you're from. When you get started on BetterHelp, they have you fill out a questionnaire where you say what you're here to talk about. And a lot of times you don't know what you're there to talk about, and it's really kind of cool to go into something not knowing what you're gonna get out of it, and then leaving with all these new insights and revelations. I mean, I did, and you guys see on this channel, I talk about them a lot. Keeping in line with this video as well, I also think it's worth mentioning that your political beliefs stem from your experience in the world, which, I mean, stems from your friends, family, your job, your childhood, where you grow up. And I'm just saying, when I would meet up with my therapist via video chat, we fleshed out everything, like where all my thoughts are coming from, why I think the things that I do, and I got a lot out of it, not only for my own like mental health, but yeah, even like my political beliefs. And also like distancing myself from a lot of them. I think people can get a little caught up sometimes in clinging on to one belief when maybe it's not serving them anymore. All right, if you think you could get a lot out of a therapy session or sessions or months of sessions, which is what I do, you can use the link on the screen right now, betterhelp.com/Damon, or the link in the description box below for 10% off your first month. Highly recommend you do it. Really helped me out, not only with, as I said, how I view the world, but politically. All right. Let's continue on. But right now, let's get into some dumb, like non-political things that America could change quickly. When you go to buy something in the United States and you see the price, it says $5.99. That's great. You would think it'd be $5.99. Wrong. You take it to the cash register and then they add tax onto it there at the spot. Like, you don't know how much you're paying until you're at the cash register. It's not that serious now that we just have tap to pay, but I just remember growing up, like going anywhere, you had to take extra money because you never knew how much the sales tax was going to be, and that it's different. Like, it's different depending on which state you're in, how much they charge for sales tax. It's just like you're just fucking around at this point. Like, just put the sales tax in the price. As we see through this video, though, you will notice that a lot of these things literally just break down to money. And I hate to just be reductionist and simplistic and just say that the United States is all about money. You're gonna see the United States is actually all about money. I mean, you really could have just put the sales tax in the price and figured it out like everywhere else in the world does it. But in my mind, it's a way to get you to spend more money. You spend more money because you don't think you're spending as much until you get to the final cash register and it's like too late because they added in all the tax. Like, tax can be, I mean, on an iPhone, it's like gonna be $100 at that point. The next one is that the drinking age is 21 here, and it's not that it needs to be 21, it's more so that we take drinking so seriously. I get it, because for most of the states, people are driving cars, so it's a little more serious than, living in Europe, where you could just drink wherever you want, in the street, in the bar, and then just hop on a train. You're not driving, you're not a concern. It's that they take it so seriously. Like, I was in Miami Beach, and I was just trying to buy a kombucha. Like, I think there's 2% alcohol in kombucha. Like, not... Aren't y'all Whole Foods? Isn't this good for you? Like, 2% first off. Then it's organic, non-GMO, all natural. Like, at this point, you should want me to have this. Also, you sell it. So, the point, they wouldn't let me buy it because they didn't have my ID. They wouldn't let me buy kombucha because I didn't have my ID to prove that I was over 21. It's not, you could look 81. They're still going to ask for your ID because it's policy. And at this point, I think you have to type it in the computer. Again, trying to keep it fair. It's just... Like, I don't think we need to be that... I feel like the United States worries so much about the wrong things. Like, none of it makes sense in this whole country. Like, there's a bar right here. And people drive to the bar. And I'm just like, so we're all acting like people aren't drinking and driving, right? Because we're at a bar You need a car to get around. Everyone's car is in the parking lot. Like, I don't. Why are we acting like the police officer can't just hang out in the parking lot and then ticket everybody with a DUI as soon as they pull out of the parking lot? Like, is this just me? Am I making sense? I feel like being in this country, I'm gaslit all day long. Like, is that actually how it goes? You know, and then you compare it to places like the UK where the public, I think it's short for public house. It's like it's a public house for everybody. So your parents could be in there drinking a beer. Your kids are like playing near the fireplace. It's the pub. It's the pub. Like, you're supposed to be at the pub. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal if a 16-year-old in Paris wants to have a glass of wine with their friends. It's not a big deal. Enjoy. Okay, college tuition. We'll keep this one short. We all know how ridiculously expensive it is to go to college in the United States. It's probably between like $20,000 and $80,000 for 1 year. Multiply that by 4. All right, it's ridiculous. It's just like more money than the third-party candidates raise. My camera's gonna die. Hold on. No, but it's like funny joke, right? I honestly, you guys, at this point, I just feel like college in the United States is one of the biggest scams. It's run like a business to the point where, okay, you rack up all this debt, 6 months out, that's when your student loans start kicking in, and that's when your real life begins. You're probably going to start freaking out because you had these dreams to go travel the world, and now how are you going to do that when you got a monthly bill? A student loan bill for probably 10, 15 years, which has been normalized. Most people, I think, that I went to college with, I ended up dropping out, right? I believe it took them like 10 to 15 years. That's normal, right? Just a casual like $500 payment every month. What? What? But it's in the government's benefit to not really do much about it, because if millions of people go to school and they rack up all this debt, student loan debt, where the government is the provider, really they just earn themselves a workforce for the next 15 years. If millions of college graduates have $100,000 of debt, you got them. Like, you got them. You got them, government, for the next 10 to 15 years. Yeah, you got yourself a workforce right there. It just feels wrong. Like, it just feels very wrong. And then that your university will reach out asking for a donation when they know you're in debt. Like, don't do that. Don't send me that email. I laughed when they sent that. You want more money? Are you sure that's for education? Then you got work study. For the non-Americans, you can work for the university, and the money that you earn gets taken off of the tuition you owe, basically the debt you owe to that college. Now, this is in the college's best benefit because they can pay you minimum wage to staff their entire school. And you think you're getting a deal. They got the biggest deal off of you right there. Not only are you indebted to them, but then they're paying you basically, the federal minimum wage, $7? $10, maybe $15. I don't think you pay taxes on that money. I don't care. It just feels predatory. The whole thing feels super predatory. And I genuinely think in the next 15 years, people will just be learning online. I think they'll just be you already know like, you go to class for an hour, then you go home and Google everything. Where are you learning actually? Are you learning in class or are you learning on Google? I don't believe that college needs to cost that much money. And I've done a million interviews and podcasts on this topic, because I have courses, right, in French and Spanish. And people's critique is that everyone's selling a course these days. Great. So be it. Everyone should be selling a course because look at the price of college. People wouldn't be buying the courses if the college was that expensive. People don't buy courses in Europe because college is worth the 500 euros. You see what I'm saying? I want to talk about credit scores. Now, I don't know if we necessarily need to change this in the States. It's just a different way of doing it. And for those already watching this far into the video, I know this is like a 5-hour video. It's important though. Let me just explain how it works in the States versus in France. In the States, there's this imaginary system called credit. Now, it's kind of the honor system at the beginning. A bank lends you a credit card and you agree to rack up money on the credit card and pay it back, most importantly. If you don't pay it back, say you spend money, you spend $200 and you don't pay back the $200 in a month, interest gets added onto that, and so then it's probably $250. And then if you don't pay that, then it goes up to $500. Now, if you have all these credit cards or a mortgage, a house, and you pay on time and you don't rack up debt, that shows that you're somebody that could be trusted. Therefore, your credit score goes up. And say you want to leave your house and go get an apartment, they will check what your credit score is to see if like you're somebody that could be trusted. So people are always worried about this like social credit system that they say they have in China. I'm like, don't we already have that? We already have that, you guys. We have that. It's called credit. It's literally called credit. Now, if you're watching this and you don't use your credit, will you please right now go freeze your credit? Because I had an instance where, like, again, I was 30 years old, didn't know, I never learned about credit, never really needed it because I'd been out of the States. And then I noticed that people were they got my number, my social security number, and they were taking out loans in my name. And that looks bad because obviously they're just taking loans out. They're not going to pay them back, which will crash my credit score. And then I won't ever be able to like get an apartment, get a car loan. You're screwed, basically. So I had to call all these credit unions. I had to call all these places and like tell them it wasn't me. And they're like, oh, you didn't freeze your credit? I didn't know that was a thing. You can freeze your credit so nobody can use it. Yeah, you should go do that right now. In France, they don't play with any of this. In France, what determines if you're a trusted person is how much your salary is, if you have a salary job, and how much your salary is each month. Really, when you get a job in France, it's for life. And it's really hard to fire you. It's a complete opposite system in the States where you have a job, it's like you should be thankful you have a job because I can fire you. In France, it's really hard to fire you. The right is with the worker, the right is not really with the business owner. A lot of stuff is like this in France. Getting a job, it's called a CDI, contract of duration indeterminable. Contrat de durée interminable, I think, meaning it's for life. Like you got a job as long as you want this job. Now that's good because it shows that you'll have a steady income for your entire life, which means that you're a reliable person to be loaning a house loan to. For example, one of the newsletters that I'm subscribed to, I get like listings for apartments that maybe I'll buy one day. Now I'm gonna have to buy it in cash because I don't have a job like that in France. So it's gonna be really, really hard for someone like me, like let alone the fact that I'm not French and I'm American, forget it. Like say you're just freelance in France, it's already hard because you don't have steady income each month. So the bank is gonna be like, I don't know if you're gonna be able to pay this next year. Then add you're an American or you're just from a different place. Baby, forget it. All right, the tipping culture in the States, we've gotta do something. Somebody has to come fix this because the reason we need to fix it is because it places the responsibility on the customer and not the boss of the person who's paying their employee. Now, I think the minimum wage in the United States for a server, waiter, waitress, is like $2-3 because they'll make most of their money in tips. Okay, let's go back to question one. Why isn't the boss paying them? Why is the minimum wage $3? Like why doesn't the restaurant have to pay them again? And that's a question that no one can really answer. And the elephant in the room, the elephant is that a lot of times you'll make a lot of money on tips. So sometimes even the servers aren't complaining. Like sometimes the servers aren't even complaining because they're actually making more than they would make if there was like a federal minimum wage for servers. I mean a higher one, like say $10, $15. They're probably making $30. So they're not complaining either. The annoying part is that now other parts of society are catching on. Like you go to Starbucks and they're asking for a tip. You go to Subway, they're asking for a tip. I'm pretty sure at the gas station they'll be asking for a tip. You order Uber, they're asking for a tip. You go to the barber shop, it's a tip. It's a taxi driver, it's a tip. Someone's handling your luggage, I think you're supposed to tip. I'm even confused that I'm an American who I'm supposed to tip now. Like it gets uncomfortable because you don't want to be the guy who doesn't tip and then you look like an asshole, right? This whole thing could be avoided once more if people just paid people correctly. And I feel like it's becoming a battleground out here where you go to tip somewhere here in Indiana. Now, when I was growing up, it was 18%. I honestly think it was 15%, but now I think it's commonplace as 18%. Okay, well, when they flip the screen around, you have the options. 15, like obviously you're not gonna click 15, it's supposed to be 18. 20, it's like, I thought, where's 18? Like it's supposed to be 18, I thought. And then 25. And so now the middle option is 20, so we're standardizing everyone to pay 20. And pretty soon, 10 more years are gonna be 25. Obviously, it's a nice thing to tip somebody. Like, you wanna tip people who are nice to you and doing, also like, is that the basis for tipping somebody? You were nice to me? Like, that should already be la base. You should just already be nice. And then if you go above and beyond, you get tips. Now it's like, oh my God, you talked to me? Here's a tip. It's very bizarre. The whole thing's bizarre. And if you don't tip, people look at you like you're the asshole instead of the system being an asshole. But people aren't mad at the system. People aren't mad at their bosses. Restaurants definitely not mad. Cafes definitely not mad. Employees mad at you if you don't tip correctly. You know what else is fucked up? Okay, not only is the screen fucked up where it doesn't even say the correct tipping amount now, it says a higher one. The fact that when you get the printout and you're like, you know, coming up with the tip, thinking of what the tip's gonna be, a lot of times the service charge will already be in there. Service charge as in tip in a lot of restaurants. And down at the bottom it'll say ADD gratuity. So you're thinking, oh, add gratuity, add tip because it's not in there, add gratuity. Bitch, that means additional gratuity. Yeah, I don't like how it's it's a battleground. I told you it's a battleground out there. It doesn't need to be this way. I thought this was supposed to be a nice thing you're doing. But now it's, remember I made this video about travel? How a lot of it's becoming gotcha. There's a lot of gotcha-ness out there. And I don't like that. I don't think it needs to be that way. Like, why don't you just bake it in the price at that point? If it's required to tip you, just add it into the price. And then I feel good that I fulfilled my financial duty already, you know? If we make everything tipping, like you have to tip everywhere you go because it's the right thing to do and the nice thing to do, then it's just annoying everywhere you go. Am I the only one who thinks that way? I just find it a little annoying to have to always come up with tip and wondering if I'm doing it correctly. It gets exhausting, is what I'm trying to say. It's exhausting because even that person who was tipped will then, when they go to other places, they're gonna have to tip too. So I feel like we could just get rid of that whole thing. Or do it like France, where it's just like $1 here and there. Like it's not expected at all. In fact, you know what? I'm part of the problem. I am absolutely part of the problem. Because every time I go to my barber's €8. And I'm like, first off, you do an amazing job each time. I've come to you for like 3 years. I give him a 10 and like, that's great. Like €10, come on. But I feel like I am almost doing everyone else a disservice because they don't tip. They just give them €8 and they expect the €2 back. And so if I am standardizing the tipping, then they're going to keep expecting the tips. So I feel like, I don't know. Yeah, I might be fucking it up for everybody. But I'm trying to do the right thing. Yeah, I don't know. There's also a part of me that feels a little guilty. Like if they hear my American accent and then they're like, oh, you're not tipping? I know that tipping is huge in your country. About the restaurants, one thing I really love about the rest of the world is that you're not rushed out. See, again, I think it comes down to money in the United States. As soon as you walk into a restaurant for dinner in New York, like I get it, there's a lot of demand. It's, hi, welcome in. Just so you know, we'll need the table back in about an hour. Is that all right? Like, no, that's not all right. I wanted to chill here. This is the one place I can go that's not my house or work. Just wanted to chill. Everything's very structured. I get it. It's for demand. They want to make the most money. When you're done with your meal, the waiter comes around. Hi, is there anything else I can get you? No? Just the check? And so then you're like, yeah, I guess I'll take the check. He brings you the check and you're still lingering. You all set here? Can I take this? All right, y'all have a good night. And then, bitch, you better leave. You better leave because I got the next party coming in. Like, is this the society we want to live in? I don't know about that. I mean, you know what they could do? Because again, they do this in France. If the concern is that the entire society is so structured around people needing to make money because everything is so fucking expensive, healthcare, university, people's rent and prices skyrocketing, then why doesn't the government do what France does and they There is rent control. There's like a limit. You can go on this website, you type in your apartment address, you type in the type of building when it was built, and how much square footage it is, and you can see the maximum rent that your landlord is allowed to charge you. Now, I don't think most people know about this, but in France, that's a common thing. In the States, they can charge you as much as they want, and they could keep raising the price as much as they want. Because our country is all about profit and investments, and I don't think that would even fly because a lot of people are property owners, and instead of approaching every issue from, is this fair, is this right, it's more from the other angle, like, I have a right to make money too, I should be allowed to do what I want to do. It's not like, does this make sense for everybody? And in a way, like, I used to think that I was super individualistic, and when it comes to like following your dreams and listening to what you want to do in life, I am very individualistic. When it comes to politics, like, I'm realizing I'm not. I'm very much like for the person. Then you can argue everyone thinks they're the good guys. Every conservative Republican, every liberal Democrat thinks that they're the good guys, so. Like, no one thinks they're the bad guy. So this is the importance of travel. I preach it nonstop. When you go on vacation, yeah, enjoy your time. Enjoy your time. Enjoy your time at the beach. But maybe try to figure out, like, how is their system set up? When you go, most Americans vacation in Mexico. Next time you go to Mexico, why don't you just look it up? How is their government run? How do they get their health care? Is it better or is it worse? I guess you can't be aware of things here's a sentence for you. You can't be aware of things that you're not aware of. You can't. Lastly, local government, I think, affects you most anyway. So look into who is running your city. Actually, this is kind of cool. Indiana is a very Republican place, but actually the mayor for the past 15 years has been Democratic. I don't even think people give a shit about Republican or Democrat. They just want to see change, or else just give us the money back. Or I want a refund. I don't think they care about which side is scoring the most points. They just want to see change. I would love to hear what you have to say if you're an American, and also if you're not an American and you live elsewhere. Like, how does the system work? And is it better or worse? Like, I want all of us to improve. I want the world to be a better place for everybody, everywhere. And I just don't know why it's so hard to change some of these things. All right, I'm gonna run to tennis. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Mount Rushmore. Gotta go celebrate American politics. Bye. God, the world could be a freaking utopia by now. It could be such a utopia. I genuinely feel like in 80 years, we will have figured all this out, and we'll look back and be like, were they dumb? Like, were they actually dumb? Because what? Let's just say I'm a bit concerned about the election process since, I got a ballot to my email, which was so easy to do. I didn't finish it just because I'm waiting to the last minute when, maybe some candidate will do some crazy shit and then I'll be like, shit, why'd I vote for them? I'm concerned because I got a ballot to my email, but I requested one to my house in Paris. So I'm gonna go back to Paris and see if, like, do I have a ballot there too? Like, 2 ballots? That's one too many. One too many, America. Actually, hold on, I just had this thought. What if we just removed the label Republican Democrat and there were just 2 people running and there were no such thing as parties? Like, there were none of these like clubs that people could have, like, if you just watched a debate and there were just 2 people, instead of it being this Republicans versus Democrats and red versus blue, the teams. Politics is treated like sports in the States. Lastly, property tax. This doesn't even fit in the video, but I might as well mention it. It's no surprise that some schools in the United States are better than others because the way that public schools are funded are by property tax. So basically, there's a property assessment dude who walks around the house, looks at the value of your house, writes it down, goes to the next house. Neighborhoods that are more expensive have higher property tax. So those property taxes go to the local school, public school. And so in theory, they'd be able to pay better teachers, have better programs. Those students are going to be, I guess, better off. And the system perpetuates itself. Compared to neighborhoods with like lower incomes, lower house values, lower property tax, lower funding for the school, lower, I guess, student success. We already know that the United States is doing its own thing. We got different paper sizes. Like if you're printing something in Europe, for example, it's not 8.5 inches by 11 inches. I think it's A4 is what it's called. Even the printer is different. We got even the camera. I just had to change my camera settings because the frequency of the lighting is different. We know that. These are like kind of new, dumb things. Pounds to kilograms, inches, centimeters, or millimeters. When you watch TV, you can't watch the full television show. If you're watching it on cable, baby, there's gonna be 2-3 commercials at the perfect moment. At the perfect moment when you want to keep watching, that's when they slide in a commercial spot. In France, it's all the commercials are at the end of the program, and then the next one starts. I never really understood it because people have a really big obsession with football in the United States, and especially college, also with college football. And my thinking is, how can you be so dedicated to a team when the team is like, aren't the people changing every season? So it's technically a different team each year. I just never understood it. But then you watch a football game and you see the cheerleaders, and you see the halftime performances, and you see the people painting their faces and stomachs, and people make it fun. So it isn't just sports, it's like a celebration. So I guess, I don't know, I try to look at both sides and be like, whatever, what it comes down to in life is just like your own attitude on everything. You can have fun anywhere. So if people enjoy it, how about I let them enjoy it? Because then I was like, well, I love tennis, what's the difference? But there is a difference because you're following one athlete and you like their game, right? But at sports team, each season the team is changing. And I realize I am very European in that aspect now. Like, I want to sit at a bar where there isn't a TV. I guess I just need to stop going to sports bars. But that's the thing, every bar is a sports bar here. As I said, I went to my niece's volleyball game last night, and wow, I forgot how much of a show it was. Mind you, I was most spirited of my high school, so I was at every game, but I haven't been to one in probably 15 years. I forgot, like, all the politics that come along with varsity and JV, announcers, adult volunteers for the volleyball game. The parents in the stand are wearing the high school's name. They have halftime shows, the cheerleaders, they got the band coming out. We're standing up to do the national anthem. And also like the theme nights. That night was senior night. So like the seniors of the high school were the ones who were mostly playing. So my niece didn't get to play. She's a freshman on the senior team, okay? The performance. And I think those are the parts that American culture does right. Now, I'm from Indiana. Let me just paint the picture. This is like what happened yesterday. I'm driving to the gas station, which already is very American, I feel like, because there's no public transportation. So it's very car-centric. To get anywhere, you have to drive. And if you want to walk, people will find you weird. They would so quickly say, oh, well, I can take you. Even if you want to like walk somewhere, you can't walk anywhere. Like that's not part of the culture here. So I drive to the gas station, which is just right there. I go in to pay. I accidentally bump into a guy and he goes, oh, whoa there. And then he pats me on the back. So I pay for my tank, number 2. I walk out and some guy like just left his car running, which again, I'm noticing these things after being in such pro-environmental écologie France that like people are just leaving their cars running. Okay. But not only that, the fact that he felt so safe to just leave his car running with his keys inside. I feel like I'm having all these observations coming back this time that I had never, like before I was in the American soup. Like I was just another ingredient in it. And now I'm the spoon outside of the soup that like dips in every so often. There's just gotta be a better way. Sorry, I'm thinking, it's just very weird that money does get extracted from all of our paychecks, and the only say you get on where it goes is that one vote for a candidate, just hoping that they actually follow through on their promises. That's it. I just feel like there should be a better way where you could log it. We already all have our government IDs, right? And we can log in to see how many taxes we owe. Why can't we also, I'm talking like it could be as simple as check boxes, whereas you can opt in where your money goes or doesn't go. Sure, maybe people aren't smart enough or well informed to know like where their money should go. Then just let us choose one part of society where our money's not going. So if I really don't support war, then I'm gonna uncheck war. And I really don't give a fuck about the environment, then I can uncheck that. That sounds like a true democracy right there. I don't know. People's solution seems to be just raise taxes on the rich. Like let's say a billionaire's tax. I'm not even convinced that'll work. I'm not like, I can't even trust you with like $10. How you'll invest $10, let alone 10 billion extra dollars that you get from a billionaire. I don't think I can trust you. Common sense, easy solutions to so many problems. And there's just a lot of like political point scoring and like bickering that really your average American does not give a damn about, like doesn't care. I think we can all agree, is what I'm trying to say. We can all be friends again with these solutions. Okay, so like I'm starting to sound like a politician.